Okay, Darren, we've had a couple of days since the 2026 Ingles SoCon Basketball Championships there in Asheville. Furman Paladins getting the big win, and yes, sigh of relief, so to speak, for the Paladins after 1,099 days since they were able to cut down the nets a few years ago there in Asheville to get their first Southern Conference tournament championship in 43 years. So it didn't take them that long again. And Bob Richey, he had actually talked about it, that it won't take them 43 years to do it again. And it did not. And this is now our opportunity to do a recap of the tournament itself, because I thought it was a fantastic tournament. I know the championship game, you had the number 1 seed ETSU Buccaneers there, number 6 seed Furman Paladins, and we've talked about it even after the post-game show, or I should say during the post-game show, that Furman is not a 6 seed based on the talent that they have. Now, of course, they are based on the season that they had, but this was an opportunity where you were thinking it was going to be a rock fight, a dog fight, so to speak, between the two teams, but Furman came out and they said, no, we're going to take control of this game and we're going to dominate from start to finish as they go on to get the 15-point win, 76-61. But even more so, just the rest of the tournament, just even starting there on Friday night when you've got Citadel and Chattanooga, and what an absolutely fantastic game. And we talked about, hey, the Citadel just seems to be different. They might be redefining their program in real time. And they were able to showcase that against Chattanooga as Shola Adebisi, 26 points in that game and hit a huge 26 three-point shot with just under 10 seconds to go in that game that sealed the deal for the Citadel and gave them that three-point victory. And again, kudos to what the Citadel was able to do and come in there and get a tournament victory.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked about it a little bit earlier in the weekend. Man, if Shola Adebisi could have been this consistent earlier in the year, like what could have this Citadel team done? But credit to him. I mean, he really came on late. He played very well down the stretch and became a reliable and consistent kind of second option there for Coach Conroy. But really happy for them and their ability to kind of get off the mat last year, not winning a conference game and coming back and winning 7 regular season games. And then, as you said, getting a win in the conference tournament and playing ETSU very competitively for the vast majority of that game on Saturday. And so, you know, you are hopeful that they can build some momentum with this. And I think with that staff that they have down there, they can certainly do that. And hopefully this becomes a little bit more of the norm for them and they can continue to build.
For certain. And then in that other matchup on Friday, we did see UNCG take out to VMI. And I know VMI is at the point where even with the performance that you had from Linus Holmstrom, that they're thinking, okay, we just need this season to be over. And I don't mean that in a negative way, but it was a long season for VMI, especially with the crazy story. Again, I still think it's the story of the SoCon, just in terms of your preseason player of the year didn't play an entire game. So, you know, you have that aspect. Now, you can say the story is that Furman, a 6 seed, is able to win the tournament championship, and I do understand that. But that's just crazy for VMI. And then the injuries that they had, and TJ Johnson tried to do everything he could for that VMI team with Andrew Wilson leading the charge there as head coach. But just not enough firepower as UNCG gets that victory there on that Friday night. And KJ Younger, one of the best freshmen in the league, no question, 29 points in that game. And Justin Neely, he did his normal thing, but it was KJ Younger just with 29 points. And I thought that was a massive opportunity to showcase just how good he is. And then you talked about the Citadel and ETSU game. Yeah, that was a much closer game than people realize. It wasn't until late that ETSU was really able to pull away and the Citadel gave them all that they wanted. But then it was UNCG and Wofford. My goodness, what a game. Justin Neely, 24 rebounds. It's almost unheard of. And it was just one of those things where it wasn't like the ball was just bouncing his way and it was coming to him. He was going after it. He did everything in terms of not only boxing out, but he would box out and the ball would be on the other side of the block, and he would run over there and grab it before anybody else could. I mean, it was just extreme elite effort there for Justin Neely. And then also throw in, he had 22 points, and UNCG gets the win over Wofford, the upset there, knocking out the number 2 seed. And it just came down to eventually Justin Neely was too much, but also Wofford, the free throw line. Man, that was I just couldn't believe that type of performance at the free throw line for Wofford there.
Yeah, I mean, they were 6 of 19 from the free throw line.
Oh, my goodness.
If you go back, and again, look, we've said it many times, box score doesn't indicate who wins the game, obviously.
That's right.
If you go back and look at that box score outside of their free throw shooting, that's a game that you would think that they find a way to win. I mean, they were 10 of 26 from 3. And obviously they got 46 points out of 2 of their backcourt mates, Holmes and Makowski. And so,
yeah, Mahowski.
You think that Mahowski, excuse me. So, you think that you play well enough to win that game, but the free throws killed him. And you hate to kick a man when he's down, but Kamari Holmes 1 of 9 from the free throw line. I mean, he's going to be kicking himself for a while on that one. Completely uncharacteristic of that group to shoot that poorly from the free throw line. But, one of the things that you brought up earlier that I think is really important to illustrate is that, honestly, 1 through 6 in this conference tournament, and we saw it throughout, there just on any given night, there just wasn't much separation between 1 through 6.
That's right.
And I think there was a drop off. I know UNCG was a 7 seed and they made it to the semifinals, but I do think there was a drop off after you were 1 through 6. But 1 through 6 were so tightly packed together. Anybody that's followed this league throughout the year wouldn't be surprised to see, heck, I know I don't think it could be possible based on the seedings, but 6 and 5 playing against each other in the championship game because a couple balls bounce each of those teams' way throughout the regular season, and they might be the 1 or the 2 seed. So, I think this is just an overarching theme of this year is that this group was so well packed together, and there was a lot of parity 1 through 6. And so, you just weren't overly surprised when you saw some lower seeds win games this weekend.
Yeah, no, you definitely weren't. And then as you move on to the other games there in the quarterfinals, we talked a little bit about the Furman run, Samford Furman, as Furman gets the win 86-81. And it was the Tom House show. It really was. 20 points there for Tom House off the bench, hitting some crucial 3-point shots. And then also he goes 7 for 7 from the free throw line down the stretch. And so we were just talking about free throws and how important they are, and Tom House delivered. But this was also a game, man, you felt that Furman, again, going back, you look at the stat sheet for the first half, Furman blistering there from beyond the arc, but somehow Samford staying in that game. It was tied 46-all at halftime because Mr. Jaden Buckets, he was going off in this game, but he just didn't get enough help throughout the entirety of the game. Dylan Faulkner, 12 points, 9 rebounds, just a little bit short of what we normally see from that double-double machine, and just not enough production outside of the Norris brothers there for Samford. And I thought a key was going to be, could you get an Isaiah Campbell-Finch or a Zion Wilburn? Could they be one of those guys that impact the game? And unfortunately, Zion Wilburn, he didn't do anything in this game. I don't think he even scored in this game. And I think Finch only had 7 points. So even with Jaden Buckets, Jaden Booth, that is, his 34 points going 8 of 15 from beyond the arc, it was just not enough. He ran out of gas, so to speak. And when you're getting the production like that for Furman with Tom House, it's going to be difficult to beat Furman when they're shooting the way they were shooting.
No, absolutely. And look, you got 4 guys in double figures in that game for the Furman Paladins. And as you mentioned, I think this has really kind of been an underrated and undervalued aspect of this Furman team is their defense this year has been sound. Some of their part of their roller coaster. Look, we could go into the weeds of the injuries, things of that nature, but some of the inconsistencies were really more on the offensive end this year than on the defensive end. This was a very good defensive team coming out of Greenville, and I think they really illustrated that this weekend, in particularly that Samford game. Look, the Norris brothers, they did a great job on the Norris brothers. Neither of them were really able to get off. and get into any sort of rhythm. And as you mentioned, uncharacteristic kind of 12-9 from Dylan Faulkner. And frankly, like for him, that's a little bit of a pedestrian-ish stat line. And, it's like a backhanded compliment to him, right? Because a lot of guys give you 12-9 and you feel pretty good about it. But he's a guy, I think, in this moment that you would anticipate, doing a little bit more than that. To put his group in the best position to be able to win a game. But I think credit to Furman's defense. I think the size bothered Dylan Faulkner in this game. And, it was, that said, it was still a really close game throughout. And Tom House did a phenomenal job coming through down the stretch. Big scoring performance. But like you said, also was 7 for 7 from the free throw line. And as we talked about during his interview, there was just a sense of calm from him and the rest of that group that the moment wasn't too big. And when it really came down to time to get it done, they were prepared, they were comfortable, and they were ready to do so. And they did, obviously, and they pulled away. And kudos to them especially from a defensive perspective to really take away a lot of what allowed Samford to be so good down the stretch.
Yeah, no question. And as Darren mentioned, we did have Tom House on SoCon Fast Break in our player edition. So make sure you check that out. Also, it was great conversation with Furman's Tom House, again, right after they won the SoCon Tournament Championship. So everybody's still on a high right now there in the Furman campus. But you also then look at the game Western Carolina versus Mercer. And again, I think this one's going to be one that Mercer's going to be thinking about for a long time. You're up by 17 points there. Now, I know it was early in the first half, and so many times, even a 17-point lead in the first half, that means nothing at sometimes because there's still so much time and you can grind away and you can get back in the game. And we see that quite often. But this is a game where Mercer just couldn't get things going again there in the second half, and give Western Carolina a lot of credit right there. And Tejan Dumasi, I mean, my goodness, he was going off there and keeping Western Carolina in that game, especially in the first half, those last 8 minutes to close that 17-point deficit. But then it was Marcus Kell at the end, just again, free throws, making some of those key free throws down the stretch, and they get the 4-point victory there and move on to the semifinals there. And you just looked at that situation again. Mercer, man, outside of Baraka Koje, his 26 points, they just didn't get the production that they needed from the interior. And I felt this game was going to come down to the interior, and Armani Mighty, he didn't have a game. And in the tournament, you can't have one of those games. You've got to be ready to go. And again, not saying it's all on Armani Mighty's shoulders, but you do have to look at it from a perspective of, man, you got to go out there. And Western Carolina just did a good job of neutralizing him.
No, they did, and like you said, it's certainly not on one guy. I mean, it's a team effort, but you do need your stars to be stars.
You do in tournament time.
Tournament time,
they have to be stars in tournament time.
They just have to be. And there's a lot of things, unfortunately, that I think Mercer will look back on here and be frustrated about. But no doubt they will learn from that, and they will be with Coach Ritter leading that group, expect Mercer to be, very competitive and right back where they were again moving forward. An incredible job by that staff and that group this year. But outside of the number of things that frankly kind of did them in this game, they got annihilated on the glass. We already mentioned, unfortunately, Armani Mighty being neutralized. And free throws in this one too. I mean, Mercer 11 of 19 from the free throw line. And it's just, there's a lot of things that can lose you basketball games, especially tournament time. But it's a lot of times the little things, like when you got free opportunities at the charity stripe, you just got to take advantage of them. And you and I have talked about it all year. One of the things that has allowed Mercer to reach the levels that they did, and when they were at their best, they were getting to the free throw line, particularly, obviously, Baraka Okoje, but they were getting to the free throw line and getting, a significant amount of points from there, and they just were not able to capitalize and do that in this game. And on the flip side of that, look, Western Carolina's size really impacted this game too. Obviously, we mentioned it on the glass. Obviously, we mentioned it with Armani Mighty. But again, broken record, they got 4 guys in double figures.
That's right.
That group in color, we had dudes that could put the ball in the basket. And they did.
They definitely did. Yeah, that's a big theme. And then ETSU basically returns the favor for Western Carolina, unfortunately, for the Catamounts, as Western is up by 17. And somehow ETSU just continued to grind. And I need to watch even more film of this, because I'm not certain how ETSU won this game, because there were so many opportunities where it could have slipped away easily. But it came down to Blake Barclay just decided to go ahead and take the game over as he goes on his own 11-0 run down the stretch there that helped seal the victory. And then the defensive stops that they had. And that was a significant part of what we saw with ETSU. And we've talked about it several times with ETSU. They're not necessarily built to go on these big 17-0 runs from an offensive standpoint, that spurtability from Clark Kellogg, as he famously has coined that phrase. But they do have the ability just to slowly grind and continue to force some turnovers, get deflections, get some steals, and then get into their half-court offense. And that's what they did with Blake Barclay. And it was just eye-opening that you didn't have Alan Struthers or Cam Morris out on the court there the last 5 minutes of that game. I mean, Alan Struthers only played 7 minutes in that game. And again, he's a defensive type of guy. I mean, he was first team all defense in the SoCon. So there's no doubt. But Brooke Savage, he had his formula, and he felt this different lineup is what they needed. And sure enough, it paid off.
No, it did. And I think, and I mentioned this on the post-game show when we were talking about this game, but I think a really big factor of ETSU's ability to come back, and especially down the stretch when Blake Barclay took over, was Justin Johnson injuring that ankle midway through the second half. He'd only played 10 minutes to date, but I think he really gave them a versatile option inside with athleticism, length, and size to be able to slide and probably match up the best of their big guys against a guy like Blake Barclay that can step out, into space and break you down a little bit off the bounce. And I think it became apparent that he had a mismatch late in that game and exploited it. As you mentioned, he went on an 11-0 run, I think, either by himself or he scored 11 straight points for the ETSU Buccaneers. And I just think without having the chance to go back and watch the film, I think if Justin Johnson was healthy, that probably ends up being the matchup. And is he able to guard Blake Barclay in space a little bit better?
Yeah, and I'm not certain, because I think Blake Barclay, he was so determined. He was getting it on the low block, and it didn't matter who was there, because he was going to go straight into their chest and try to draw contact. And he did that with Dada, gets a big and one there, and then being able to knock down the free throws. That was another big factor there for Blake Barclay. And again, that's a recurring theme also. You've got to be able to hit free throws down the stretch. That is for certain. And then Furman taking on UNCG there in the other semifinal. And UNCG, they came out, they were ready to play, but it was 3 games in 3 days. And I think ultimately they just ran out of gas, especially out on the perimeter, to be able to guard Alex Wilkins. Wilkins goes off for 28 points there in the second half, and there was no way they could contain him. And when you're struggling from the perimeter defensive side because of your legs are tired, then ultimately that also can affect your shooting. And that's what happened there. Noah Norgard just could not connect from beyond the arc, and he was a big reason why UNCG was able to beat Wofford in that game. He knocked down several three-point shots in that game against Wofford and was a double-figure score, but just couldn't get anything going. And it wasn't until Lillian Marville right there at the end, it was just a little bit too late, that they started knocking down some three-pointers. And just Justin Neely just couldn't do everything for UNCG at that time. He needed some help. But this was really about Alex Wilkins taking over in that second half.
Absolutely. I think UNCG couldn't have played much better in the first half.
That's
they
right.
just couldn't have. They were
Yes.
they were really good in
Yes.
that first half. They were getting Furman in rotations, and they were just very effective and efficient offensively. And frankly, they looked like they looked a little bit more like a traditional Mike Jones team did at UNCG defensively. They were sound defensively in that first half. But coming out, second half adjustments, I thought Furman did an incredible job tightening up defensively, and man, did they shrink that floor in the second half. You and I were sitting on that end for that game, and it was stressful watching UNCG operate their offense because there were no driving lanes. Nothing was easy for the Spartans, and so I really think that from it started for Furman in that second half on the defensive end, and then Alex Wilkins, as you mentioned, got going. And frankly, look, UNCG had no answer for him, and I don't think that they didn't really have an ability to try to get it out of his hands. They put multiple guys on him. I do think Pinedo going out around 14 minutes with his third foul and sitting for I think about 6+ minutes. I do think that played a role in that, because I thought he had done a pretty good job in ball screen action or dribble handoff actions where Alex Wilkins was involved in his offensive assignment was a part of as a rim protector and an ability to make things a little bit more difficult. But just, Alex Wilkins in that defense in the second half, there was no stopping either of them.
Yeah, no question about it. I do think the depth when you don't have some of the guys for UNCG to be able to, again, 3 games in 3 days, that takes a toll on you. And that's why we've seen it. It's very difficult to even get to the championship game if you have to play on Friday, let alone even win a championship. We know that hasn't actually been done since 1939 with the Clemson Tigers doing it. So it's been a long time that you've had to you've been able to win 4 games in 4 days to get the SoCon title. And it's very difficult. And we saw that with UNCG. All right, now moving to the championship game. And we've already talked about some of this on the post-game reaction that we did there live at Harris Cherokee Center in Asheville. But this was just Furman coming out. We felt that going into it, could they shoot 38% from beyond the arc, and could they make 10 3-pointers? Well, they did both of that. They made 10 3-pointers and they shot 38.5% from beyond the arc. And that was definitely one of the factors that played into the Paladins getting that victory over ETSU. But at the end of the day, it does come down to Cooper Bowser. He came out and was dominant in this game, and it was something that ETSU just had no answers whatsoever. And that's why I think Cooper Bowser is an unsung hero throughout the tournament. He was 21 of 30 from the field in the tournament. And at one point, he was 7 of 7 in that game against ETSU. He ended up 9 of 12 there, a double-double, also with 11 rebounds. So, he was playing at an elite level. And I think also the thing that for Furman, what they were able to do, they flipped the script in terms of what we saw in the regular season in the SoCon. Because in the regular season of the SoCon, they were last in the conference in free throw percentage and last in the conference in 3-point percentage. And that's crazy when you think about those stats for Furman, especially from beyond the arc, because we know they're a volume shooting team. And they're definitely typically one of the teams at the upper tier in terms of 3-point field goal percentage. But in the tournament, this was a Furman team that shot 83% from the free throw line and 44% from beyond the arc. That's flipping the script right there. And that's what ultimately helped Furman go ahead and take that Southern Conference Tournament Championship.
Yeah, an absolutely dominant in all caps performance from the Furman Paladins.
No doubt.
I know Coach Richey felt that was one of the best overall played games in his 9-year tenure as head coach at Furman. And that's saying a lot because he's won a lot of games and had some really good teams. But there's really nothing that you can look to that they didn't do well on Monday night. They shot it well. They were poised. They were confident. They were great defensively. Again, similar to that UNCG game, every single thing in the half court was difficult for ETSU the entire night.
Labor intensive on the offensive side for ETSU.
And to Furman's credit as well, they were able to operate efficiently on the offensive end of the floor. They moved the ball incredibly well. They were getting ETSU into rotations. And as part of getting ETSU into those rotations, ETSU was never really able to ratchet their defense up where they can become kind of high pressure, high intensity, turn you over and get live ball turnovers to get easy buckets. And I do think a lot of that, and Tom House kind of reiterated that when we spoke to him. I think Cooper Bowser getting going early was a really, really comfortable factor for the Furman Paladins, where they kind of knew, look, we got our guy going inside. He's doing his thing. He is dominating the interior for ETSU. And that really helped, I think, that group. Not that they needed settling down Monday night, but I do think it really helped them even settle down more and be more calm.
No doubt. Well, and we talked about it on the pregame, and I had pointed out that Furman leads the SoCon in 2-point field goal percentage. So why would you not try to focus on the interior? Because then that's going to open things up for the perimeter, that the defense is going to collapse because that gravity has to happen. They've got to try to maybe double team. And there were several times the double team just came way too late for ETSU. They had to honor the perimeter also, and that's what allowed Cooper Bowser to go off in that game. And you talk about ETSU, just the labor-intensive situation on offense, and you and I were sitting there. There was about 2 minutes to go, and they create a turnover. They've got a 4-on-3 fast break opportunity, and they turn the ball over right there, almost at half court. Alex Wilkins steals the pass and then goes and dunks, and that was a wrap. It was over at that point, and that was just indicative of the entire night there for ETSU.
Yeah, and we talked about it on the post-game show. ETSU played tight,
they did.
Unfortunately.
Yes.
And it didn't help that they got behind early, because it was an uncomfortable feeling for them and a little bit of an uncharacteristic feeling for them when they were playing well. They did have a tendency to get behind early at times throughout the regular season, but when they were playing well, obviously that certainly wasn't the case. But you could tell that they got tighter as the game went on, and they were down by a fairly significant margin, multiple possessions, and they started to really have to play out of their comfort zone. Now, part of it was they needed 3 points per possession instead of 2 points per possession more often than not, especially later in the game. But they really kind of got out of what they excelled in. But credit to Furman, because Furman really kept them from being able to do that.
That's right. Yes.
The dribble penetration was just not there for the ETSU Buccaneers in the half court.
It definitely wasn't. And ETSU goes 18.5% from beyond the arc. And again, I know that's not their mantra in terms of how they're really getting production from a point distribution standpoint, but you've got to be able to hit some of those shots. You've got to at least be hovering around 30% from beyond the arc to have a shot against a team like Furman. There's no question, from that standpoint. But Furman gets the big win, 15 points. So it was a little bit anticlimactic as far as all of the other close games that we had, but just a dominant performance there for the Furman Paladins. And then when you look at the first team selections there, you do have Cooper Bowser on the first team, the interior dominance there. You've got the duo from ETSU, Brian Taylor II and Blake Barclay, Justin Neely, Iron Man, Justin Neely, double-double machine. And then you also have the clear choice for most outstanding player, and that's Alex Wilkins. And that's almost all we need to say, because he set the Furman freshman scoring record of now 601 points, just a dominating performance. And it was almost a way to cap the season for Alex Wilkins based on how we saw him in that exhibition game against Alabama, where he opens Timmons Arena basically with a three-point shot, the renovated Timmons Arena, I should say, against a top 15 program at the time, and just was nonchalant about it. And I felt he's played that way the entire year. Yes, he had his freshman moments up and down, but then he had the bookend, that big three-pointer there against Alabama in that exhibition game, and then the bookend right there in the Southern Conference Tournament Championship, being named Most Outstanding Player. Well deserved.
Absolutely. I mean, we've talked about it. We think he's the most talented player in the Southern Conference, and I think he showed that.
I think so.
For the majority of the year, especially in that game against UNCG. You need your stars. We talk about it. You need your stars to be stars. I mean, he was an absolute star in that game. And even if you look at his stat line in the championship game, okay, it wasn't his best stat line of the year.
It wasn't efficient.
He is a presence out on the floor that you have to account for, and that makes other guys' lives easier. And there's also a sense of calm that he plays with. You mentioned it previously. He kind of keeps the ship steady, and there's no panic. And that matters, and that especially matters come tournament time when every little thing matters that much more. And incredibly deserving of most valuable player for the conference tournament. To get another guy on that first team with Cooper Bowser as well, certainly deserved. Monster, as we talked about, monster championship game, and played well throughout the entire tournament. He had 14 points off the bench in a kind of, not used to coming off the bench, comes off the bench against Samford and has 14 points. Yeah.
And again, we'll go most outstanding player. We get him the mop, not the MVP.
Most outstanding player. Most outstanding
player for Alex Wilkins. And also on the second team, we did see Jaden Buckets, Jaden Booth there, Shola Adebisi as well, are some of the other notables. And it's tough because Jaden Booth only got one game in the Southern Conference tournament. And I'm disappointed that more people didn't get to see Jaden Buckets, because it is ridiculous how good of a shooter he is. Remember, he is the number one three-point shooter in the country, not only in the number per game, but also the total number of three-pointers made, and it's not even close. And he does it at a high clip, shooting well over 40%. So, again, I wish more people would have been able to see Jaden Booth. Okay, real quick.
I know.
Furman Paladins in the NCAA tournament. We've got Selection Sunday coming up Monday. Your thoughts, will the Furman Paladins, will they be above the 15 seed line?
Look, I haven't had a chance to take a deep dive into it.
Just what's your gut tell you? What does your gut tell you? We're not doing any analytics right now.
My gut tells me they end up with a 15 seed. I think if you look at the eye test as part of this, which I know the committee at least will take a look at the eye test to a degree, this is a good basketball team. This is not a 16 seed. I don't care where the rankings are of the Southern Conference. I don't care what their strength of schedule is here. Guess what? Most teams don't want to play Furman. It's hard for them to schedule games because it's a really well-coached team and it's a really good basketball team year in and year out. So it's not easy for them to get games. So throw all that out the window. This is a really good basketball team, and I preach it all year. And I even told this to the staff at one point. Like, they give the Southern Conference the best chance to win a game in the NCAA tournament. And I think that roster is really scary. And it was, we talked about in the postgame show, it's matchup. That's going to be the key. But from a seeding line, I think that they end up with a 15 seed, and I'm really curious to see their matchup. And look, they tipped the ball up for a reason. And this team, this head coach Bob Richey, he's won an NCAA tournament game before.
He has.
So they will be ready. They will be ready to go no matter their seed. But I think it ends up being a 15 seed.
I think.
What about you?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a 15 seed also. If they go to a 16 seed, I think that will be disappointing, because I don't think that the committee evaluated the team properly in all reality, because you do have to dive into the injuries played a big role for Furman, because if they were healthy the entire season, there's no way that they're finishing 10-8 in the Southern Conference. I can promise you that right now. They might have even won the regular season title if they didn't have injuries, because they've got the front court and then you've got the back court. And in the NCAA tournament, you have to have guard play. And we've talked about it in the Southern Conference, how valuable guard play is, elite guard play, and even more so in the NCAA tournament. But it's even more important if you can combine that with front court size. And that's where Furman has an advantage over a lot of these other mid-major teams, is that they've got the front court size, so they can match up, at least from a physical standpoint, with some of these high major programs. And so there's no doubt teams are wanting to avoid the Furman Paladins, even as a 15 seed. I can promise you that also. But CBS does have Furman as a 16 seed and playing Duke here in Greenville at the Bon Secours Wellness Arena. And I'm telling you, it would be bonkers here in Greenville if that happened. And I don't know if they would allow that to happen.
No, there's no way.
There's no way they're going to give a 16 seed or even a 15 seed an advantage like that of playing in their hometown. I just don't see that happening. But it's going to be exciting either way because the Furman Paladins are going dancing. We had a fantastic 2026 Ingles SoCon Basketball Championships there at the Harris Cherokee Center in Asheville. And we've got more SoCon Fast Break content coming up. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, follow button, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, including the iHeartRadio app. Until next time, may all your jumpers hit nothing but the bottom of the net.